it's someone to cosplay on the holodeck with, or just someone to text while waiting around all day as a transporter operator, a good friend can really brighten up your stay in the final frontier. Throughout the history of Star Trek, we've seen many amazing friendships grow and evolve, but some transcend beyond friendship into pure bromances. And although bromances are sometimes thought of as a male-exclusive thing, we're going with a gender-neutral definition for this list. Also, all relationships here must be purely platonic, meaning they have had no real romantic love for each other whatsoever. And with that in mind, I'm Ellie with TrekCulture, here with the 10 biggest bromances in Star Trek. Number 10, Data and LaForge. Geordi LaForge and Data quickly became besties while serving on the Enterprise. Geordi was Data's biggest advocate in his quest to become more human. Whether he was giving advice on the android's experiments with facial hair, or helping him to install his emotion chip and process his new feelings, Geordi was always happy to help and truly saw Data as a person. Likewise, Data cared very deeply for Geordi. When Geordi was kidnapped in Generations, Data felt deep guilt for being too stricken with fear to save him. He even offered to trade himself to the Duras sisters for his friend's release. When Geordi was finally returned, he consoled the android, telling him that he was only being human. The two also shared an interest in engineering, often running experiments together when they weren't role-playing Sherlock Holmes and Watson on the holodeck in their free time. Unfortunately, the duo barely got a chance to say goodbye before Geordi helped Data launch himself toward the scimitar, ultimately leading to his death. Well, one of them at least. Luckily, Data got to return in Picard's third season, and these two besties finally got the chance to reunite, which was really heartwarming to see. Number 9, Paris and Kim. Tom Paris and Harry Kim first met on board DS9 when Paris helped Kim avoid getting scammed by QUARK. Later, when Paris first arrived on Voyager, much of the crew disagreed with his presence due to his history of causing an accident that killed 3 people before briefly joining the Marquis. The original First Officer and Chief Medical Officer refused to even speak to him. But Harry knew that Tom had a good heart and told him, "I don't need anyone to choose my friends for me." Their bond only grew after Caretaker. The two would frequently talk about relationships, and eventually, Paris began to design his own holodeck programs like The Adventures of Captain Proton, based on vintage 1950s sci-fi, which he and Kim would play through together constantly. Paris always claimed that the program was meant to be a historical analysis of how past humans thought the future would look, but we all know he just wanted to spend time with his friend. Number 8, Rutherford and Tendi. Fellow Lower Deckers Rutherford and Tendi quickly became close friends after being posted together on the Cerritos. The two made plans to watch a pulsar together in the episode Envoys, and when Rutherford learned he'd be busy working in the Jeffries tubes, he went looking for a new job on the ship specifically to spend more time with Tendi. He eventually realised that his true calling was engineering, but Tendi was happy to watch the pulsar on a pad with him in the Jeffries tubes instead. When Rutherford was unconscious and in recovery in no small parts, Tendi stayed by his side and read him engineering manuals. And when he woke, he had no memory of their friendship, which initially upset Tendi until she realised that they could now become friends all over again. In the recent episode Path Ferengi's Heart Place, Rutherford and Tendi were pushed into such over-the-top romantic situations during their stay on Ferenginar. Yet this only solidified their friendship, which Dr. Miglimo described as famously platonic. Even after their awkward Ferengi photo shoot and eating chocolate statues of each other while taking turns saying things they find attractive about each other, Tendi and Rutherford never wanted their relationship to be anything more than best friends who can nerd out together and occasionally cuddle in the Jeffries tubes. It just makes sense. Number 7, Bashir and O'Brien. Chief O'Brien wasn't the biggest fan of Dr. Bashir at the start of DS9, finding him overly arrogant. Bashir, however, was eager to get to know the Chief. In the Season 1 episode Storyteller, Bashir asked O'Brien if he found him annoying, which Miles politely denied, and then he asked for Miles to refer to him by his first name, Julian, rather than Sir. O'Brien started to warm up to him, and their relationship slowly and naturally grew into what is probably the most realistic bromance in Trek. Before long, they were spending long hours together playing darts, racquetball, and all sorts of holosuite programs. Julian helped Miles recover from his trauma from the alien mind prison in Hard Time, and likewise, Miles accepted and supported Julian when the truth of his genetic manipulation came out. Near the end of the show, the episode Extreme Measures, O'Brien and Bashir together infiltrate the mind of Section 31 agent Luther Sloan to find the cure for the changeling virus, one of the biggest steps in ending the Dominion War. While in the mindscape, the two were faced with almost certain doom, and O'Brien took the opportunity to open up to his friend about his feelings. He confessed that his wife, Keiko, always said he liked Bashir more than her. The two exchanged nervous laughs, but Bashir wanted to know if he actually did like him more, and pointed out that the two of them spend more time together and have more in common. O'Brien denied these feelings, but Bashir admitted that while he was madly in love with Ezri, he liked his friend, the Chief, a little bit more. Number 6. Jake and Nog. When Jake and Nog first arrived on DS9, there were very few kids their age living on the station, so the two became very close despite both their parents' disapproval. Commander Sisko, however, warmed up to their friendship when he learned that Jake was actually teaching Nog to read in their spare time. Later, when Jake was considering ending their friendship in the episode Life Support, Ben actually convinced his son to try to work things out with him. Nog's father, Rom, slowly warmed up to Starfleet and humans as well. As the two got older, they remained close. When Nog went away to join Starfleet Academy, Jake was sad to see less of his friend, but fully supported and encouraged him. When Nog was recovering from his injuries and trauma from the siege of AR-558, Jake tried to console him, but Nog was overcome with grief and hit him in his frustration. Despite this, Jake understood his friend's pain and did everything he could to help him in his time of need. Number 5. Tuvok and Neelix. These bros were literally merged into one person, so it's fair to say that they know each other better than any other pairs on this list. From the moment Neelix arrived on Voyager and greeted Tuvok with a big unwelcome hug, it was clear that these two characters were complete opposites in many ways. Neelix's energy and over-the-top friendliness contrasted with Tuvok's stoic Vulcan attitude and made them a really interesting pairing. When Tuvok lost his memory in the episode Riddles, Neelix took the lead in educating him, helping him cope with the situation. Tuvok began to really enjoy Neelix's company during this period. Or maybe he always did, and was only showing it now because his Vulcan training was no longer available to mask it. Even after Tuvok's original personality returned, it still seemed like he had warmed up to the Talaxian. Before Neelix left in the episode Homestead, he vowed that he would get Tuvok to dance at least once before Voyager got home. Then, right as Neelix got ready to leave the ship for good, Tuvok said goodbye by moving his foot left and right, finally giving Neelix the dance he wanted, before telling him a heartfelt, live long and prosper. And then Neelix went in for a hug, just as he did when they met, but he realised that the Vulcan probably wouldn't like that, so he backed off and instead gave a friendly nod. This scene really showed how far they both had come in accepting each other's differences. Number 4. Quark and Odo. It may be easy to frame Quark and Odo as adversaries, but the two never truly hated each other. They both inspired one another to be better at what they do. Quark's constant rule-breaking made Odo a better security chief, and with Odo keeping his eyes on Quark at all times, Quark was forced to be more sneaky and resourceful with his illegal business. Odo and Quark argued and fought constantly, but they both seemed to take pleasure in exchanging jabs at each other. The two were even stranded on a planet in the episode The Ascent, and while they bickered aggressively the entire time, they were eventually able to escape by working together. When Odo left the station to join the Great Link, he didn't want to say formal goodbyes to anyone, but Quark ran and caught him at the airlock. He desperately asked if the changeling had anything to say about his greatest adversary, to which Odo replied with a firm no and walked away. Despite his coldness, Quark claimed to know that Odo truly loved him. When Odo finally said goodbye to Kira and joined the Great Link, he told her to tell everyone on DS9 that he would miss them, including Quark. Number 3. Dax and Sisko. The relationship between Dax and Ben Sisko was truly unique. Sisko knew Curzon Dax, the Dax symbiont's previous host, for around 20 years before meeting Jadzia. Curzon Dax, who Sisko affectionately called Old Man, was a mentor to Benjamin. Ben was heartbroken when Curzon died, but the symbiont lived on in Jadzia, who happened to get a posting serving on DS9. The change was initially quite jarring for both of them, seeing as Jadzia was much different from Curzon. But there was also so much of that old bond remaining, and Sisko continued to affectionately call Dax Old Man, despite her new host. Years later, Benjamin had to suffer through the death of a Dax again when Jadzia was killed by Gul Dukat. Then once again a new host was chosen, Esri, and they formed a new, different relationship. And we're just not going to talk about what went on with Sisko and Jadzia in the Mirror Universe. Let's just pretend that never happened. The whole situation was just so bad. Number 2, Kirk and Spock. This list would simply not be complete without mentioning Kirk and Spock, the duo whose chemistry was so strong that many believe they started the queer/fanfiction genre. From the very beginning, many fans read romantic or sexual undertones into their relationship. In one particular scene in the episode Shore Leave, Kirk complained about his sore back and a female yeoman began to give him a back massage. Kirk was enjoying the massage and said to "dig it in there, Mr. Spock," before turning, realising that it was actually the yeoman, and immediately losing interest. However, Roddenberry, Shatner and many others behind Trek have always maintained that their relationship was purely platonic, explaining that viewers at the time were simply not used to seeing two men who cared about each other so much. Their relationship was intended to show a future where two men can love each other platonically without it being considered romantic or sexual. Though, given the lack of explicit queer representation at the time, it's understandable that queer people would want to interpret the show in a queer context. Number 1, real-life Trek besties. While there were many great fictional bromances throughout Star Trek, some continued after the cameras went off. Connor Trenier and Dominic Keating played close friends Trip and Reed on Enterprise, then went on to start a talk show together, the Shuttlepod Show, where they answer interesting behind-the-scenes questions from fans and talk with other guests from Trek's history. Likewise, co-stars such as George Takei and Nichelle Nichols, Nanar Visitor and Renee Auberjonois, and Aaron Eisenberg and CIRROC Lofton, who also has a Trek-themed show, The Seventh Rule, all developed real friendships after playing friends on Star Trek. Over the years, we've seen some really beautiful friendships in the franchise, but it's always nice when the chemistry is real and the friendships between the actors extend into real life as well. And there you go, there's our list, but let us know if you think we've missed a major one in the comments down below. And while you're there, don't forget to like and subscribe and tap that notification bell. Also, head over to Twitter and follow us there, and I can be found across various social medias just by searching Ellie Littlechild. I've been Ellie with TrekCulture. I hope you have a wonderful day, and remember to boldly go where no one has gone before.